It says graphing sign right here, like this, looks like this. And then the assignment looks like this, graphing sign practice. Okay. All right, so we're on number 5. Now, be careful for today's problems because now we're starting to have the shift left and right. And if you recall, now that we have gotten into Math 4, and we have these horizontal stretching compressions, which for us is going to be a period change for this particular unit, we have to make sure that we factor the inside of the function. If you don't factor the inside of the function, you're going to get your left and your right shift wrong. So this graph has not moved to the left pi. It looks like it, but only because we haven't factored the inside. Okay? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite this equation with the inside of the function factored. So if I look at the inside, I have pi x plus pi. How can I factor the inside? Yep, I have a GCF of pi, and I can take that out, and then that gives me x plus 1. X plus 1. Okay? And I still have a minus 1/2 on the end. Okay, so the graph is going to move to the left 1. And in the context of trig functions in this unit, you can say left 1, but they also call this a phase shift. So they call this a phase shift. We got the 1 because there's a pi here and a pi there. So if you take the pi out, pi divided by pi is 1. So we took the pi out like a GCF. So the graph is shifted left 1, and you'll say it's okay to say that it shifted left 1, but some people, instead of saying, oh, it's a horizontal shift, they'll call it a phase shift instead. So phase shift and horizontal shift are the same thing. This part on the end, you can still call this a vertical shift. It moves the graph up and down. Calling it a vertical shift is still fine. So what is the amplitude for this graph? 3/2, so the number in the front tells us the amplitude. Okay. How do we find the period for this graph? 2 pi divided by the b value. The b value is pi. So 2 pi divided by pi is just 2. Okay. What is the frequency of this graph? Pi. It's just the b value. So if we were able to see in our intervals, if we were able to look at the interval from 0 to 2 pi, we're going to have 3.14 waves from 0 to 2 pi. That's how many waves we're going to have. And then our midline is y equals -1/2. Okay. So with the amplitude and the midline, I'm still okay to put my x-axis right in the middle. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay. And we always do 4 boxes, 8 boxes, or 12 boxes when we do our pi. So what would you guys like to do? 4, 8, or 12? 4. Okay, so I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4 boxes. Okay. 1, 2, 3, not pi, sorry, it was 2. The period was 2. I was looking at the frequency on accident. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And then we want to be able to have a midline of half and an amplitude of 1.5. So should I count 1, 2, 3, 4, or should I count 1, 2? 1, 2. Okay, 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and put my dotted line in for my midline. So here we are at -1/2. Okay. And I'm not going to worry about my shifting left. I have learned from experience that that's too much for my brain to do all at once. So I'm going to go ahead and do the midline part, and then just do a regular sine graph with this amplitude. So we're going to start at the beginning of the sine curve, and then there's the end, and there's the middle. Okay? And is this a regular sine curve, or is it a negative version? It's a regular, okay. So between the first 2 points, I need to go up the amount of the amplitude, which for this graph is how many boxes? 3. So I'm going to go up 1.5, which is 3 boxes. And then between the second 2 points, I'm going to do what? Go down 3 boxes. Okay, so that is one wave, but I'm not going to draw it because this entire graph is supposed to be shifted left 1 unit. If my scale is 4 boxes is 2 units, then how many boxes should I be shifting my points to the left? So 1 unit, which is 2 boxes. So I'm going to take this point, I'm going to shift it to the left 2 boxes. I'm going to take this point, I'm going to shift it to the left 2 boxes. Take this point, shift it to the left 2 boxes. I guess I didn't really need to X that out. Okay. Take this point, shift it to the left 2 boxes. Take that point, shift it to the left 2. Say it again.
Can I just erase it?
You can erase the other points. Yeah. I always just put an X through mine, but you can erase them for sure. Yeah. So here is one set of waves. So we shifted everything to the left 2 boxes. And then from there, I'm just going to keep the pattern going. Okay? So if you want to keep doing it as the beginning and the end and the middle and up and down, you can do it that way. Whenever I've done the ones where I've shifted to the left and the right, it usually messes with my brain to try to do it as like a sine graph from that point. So at this point, I just start thinking of it as a pattern and I just follow the pattern. So I noticed that the pattern was that it went up 3 boxes over 1 box. And so now I'm just thinking of it that way. So 3 boxes and then 1 box. And I just let it do the wave. So 3 boxes, 1 box. And then I just keep it going. Okay. So how do you guys feel about that? We added one extra step today that was a little different from yesterday. Okay, I want you to see if you can fill out all this information for the next problem. So the amplitude, the period, the frequency, the midline, see if you can find all that information. So the amplitude is 1. The period of the graph is pi. 2 pi divided by the 2, right? 2 pi divided by the 2 in front. The frequency of the graph is 2. So from 0 to 2 pi, we're going to see 2 waves. And the midline is 1. Y equals 1. Okay? Before I graph it, I need to rewrite this so that it's factored. So I'm going to take out 2. And I get x minus. And what is pi halves divided by 2? It's not pi. Pi fourths. Okay. Oh, I wrote pi halves. You have to take your half and, you have to make sure that this, if you were to distribute it back out, it would become that. So 2x and then 2/4 is 1/2. But if you ever are having trouble just like mentally thinking of how it works, you can always do 1/2. Well, you could type it like this. You could do 1/2 divided by 2, and then it would give you 0.25, which is 1/4. Okay, so we have an amplitude of 1. We are shifting to the right pi fourths. So we're going to say the phase shift is pi fourths, or the horizontal shift is pi fourths. Pi midline is 1. Okay, so with the amplitude and the midline being 1 and 1, it's going to work pretty well for me to have my line right in the middle. So like I said yesterday, I like to keep mine right in the middle unless I have to move it. Okay. Now, when you are doing your boxes, you're still going to do 4 boxes, 8 boxes, or 12 boxes, but you're going to have to kind of keep in mind what the period of the graph is, and if you're shifting it to the left and the right a certain amount. So if the period of the graph is pi, and you have to shift it pi 6, you probably don't want pi to be 4 boxes. If pi is 4 boxes and you have to shift it pi 6, that's not going to be easy. Does that make sense? If I had pi and I had to shift it pi 6, I might want that to be something more like 12 boxes. Does that make sense? If I have to do 4 boxes, 8 boxes, or 12 boxes, then I'm going to make that 12 boxes because pi 6 would be easier to shift if I had 12 boxes. So there's going to be a little bit of strategy involved when you're thinking about shifting left and right a certain amount based on your fractions and how they interact with the period of the graph. Does that make sense? Okay, so we have a period of pi. We're shifting it right pi fourths. So with the period of pi, does it matter if I use 4 boxes, 8 boxes, or 12 boxes? Does it matter which one? Because we're shifting it a fourth. So if we have one whole here and a fourth here, that's going to be really easy, whether or not I have 4 boxes, 8 boxes, or 12 boxes. It doesn't really matter, okay? So what would you guys prefer to do? 4, 8, or 12? 4? Okay. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4 boxes. 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 Okay. We have an amplitude of 1 and a midline of 1. So do you guys want to do 1, 2, 3, 4? Or do you want to do 1, 2? It doesn't matter which we do. What would you guys prefer to do? 1, 2, 3, 4? Or 1, 2? 1, 2? Okay. So the midline is at 1. So I'm going to put my dotted line in there. Okay. And now I'm going to start my sine graph. The period is pi, so I'm going to start at 0, end at pi, and then there's the middle. Okay? So I have an amplitude of 1. Is this a positive graph or a negative graph? Negative graph. So between the first 2 points, how am I going to do my amplitude of 1 with a negative graph? I'm going to go down how many boxes? 2 boxes to do an amplitude of 1 because of my scale. So my scale was 2 boxes is 1. Okay? So down 2 boxes. And then between the second 2 points, what am I going to do? I'm going to go up 2 boxes. Okay? Now I'm not going to draw that just yet because I have to shift to the right pi fourths. How many boxes do I shift to the right to do pi fourths? I shift 1 box to the right. So I'm going to shift 1 box to the right, 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 1 box to the right. So there's the curve. So it's up 2 over 1, 2 boxes and then 1 box. So I'm just going to keep following that pattern. Okay. What do you guys think? Good? Okay, go ahead and write the amplitude, period, frequency, and midline for the next one. So the amplitude is 2. The period is 2 pi thirds, okay? The frequency is 3, so we're going to have 3 sets of waves from 0 to 2 pi. The midline is y equals 2, okay? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and draw this in the middle. Okay. When I factor the top, I'm going to divide out a 3. And when I divide out a 3, what is my fraction? Pi over 6. Okay. All right. So we have something that's in terms of thirds. How do thirds relate to 6? How do thirds relate to 6? Yeah, 1/3 is 2/6, right? So a 1/6 is half of a third. Does that make sense? Okay. So what we're about to do is we're about to do 2 pi thirds is going to be the whole period of the graph. Okay. So if we're going to have to shift the graph a 1/6, can you see that there's a 1/6, a 1/6, a 1/6, a 1/6 in the period of the graph? So we can use 4 boxes, or we can use 8 boxes, or we can use 12 boxes pretty well because of the way the fractions work in relating a 1/6 to a 1/3. Does that make sense? Those are nice to relate. Okay. So for this one, we don't really have to be worried about the boxes because the period is in terms of thirds, and we are shifting this graph right 6. Pi 6. This is a nice shift here. So do you guys want to do 4 boxes, 8 boxes, or 12 boxes? Four. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4 is 2 pi thirds. 1, 2, 3, 4 is another 2, so that makes 4 pi thirds. 1, 2, 3, 4 is another 2, which is 6 pi thirds. 6 thirds is 2 pi. Another 2 would be 8 pi thirds. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4 is 2 pi thirds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 pi thirds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 pi thirds. 8 pi thirds. Okay, if we have an amplitude of 2 and a midline of 2, should I do 1, 2, 3, 4, or should I do 1, 2? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So there's my midline of 2. Okay, so I'm going to start at the beginning and at the end of the period. There's the middle. Okay. So between my first 2 points, what do I do? I go up. This graph is positive, so I'm going to go up. And I go up how many? So I go up 2 boxes for an amplitude of 2. Between the second 2 points, what do I do? go down 2 boxes, okay, for an amplitude of 2. All right. Okay, if that's 2 pi, this is pi thirds. If this is pi thirds, then this would be pi sixths, right? So that just means that 1 box is pi sixths. So what am I doing with each of my points? Moving 1 to the right. So move to the right, move to the right, move to the right, move to the right, move to the right. This graph almost looks identical to the last one with how we scaled it. Okay. So what I'm going to have you guys do for the rest of the period is just to start on the assignment and start graphing, and we'll see how many we get through. And then at the end of the period, I'll let you guys know how many you need to finish for homework.
This other paper?
Yes. So you did the first 2 last night. So right now you're starting on number 3. We're just going to see how many we can get to in the next 30 minutes. And then after the next 30 minutes, we'll determine how many we should get to for homework. Okay? Alrighty.